Welcome to One on One, the Daily Items digital program featuring Susquehanna Valley newsmakers interviewed by Daily Item reporters. Today's guest is Shikellamy Superintendent Dr. Jason Bendle, interviewed by Francis Scarcella.
Welcome to One on One. I'm Francis Scarcella, being joined with Shikellamy Superintendent Dr. Jason Bendle. First, we want to say we have masks, we're distanced, and the room was sanitized prior to us getting in. There was only 3 people in the room. So to make it easier so you can understand on a serious subject here, we wanted to do it this way. First, let's talk about the budget in Shikellamy. That seems to be the speculation going across the community, and there's a lot of issues that come with that, and obviously a lot of people who not only are concerned but call in and they ask their questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll get right into it on the budget.
Well, back in January, we were, we've had a preliminary budget that was $2.7 million apart. In April, we presented the second look at the budget, which was $2.16 million apart for this is the 2021 school year. So we're projecting over a $2 million deficit into next year. This COVID situation that we're dealing with complicates things even further. We have information from the state that we have to expect flat funding for next year. The governor had a 1.67% increase for basic ed and special ed into the proposed state budget. That is another, if we get flat funded, which we're being told we're going to, or worse, that's another $300,000 loss to Shikellamy. So we're sitting right now with, at best case scenario, a negative $2.5 million into the 2021 budget. We have no way to judge this whole COVID situation and how that's going to impact earned income tax collections. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40% of Americans and people in Pennsylvania that are not working right now. So we have no way to judge. That could swing our budget by another $500,000 to $1 million, and we could easily be looking at $3.5 million apart next year.
And that's a devastating number.
Yeah, and I think I want to explain, when a district runs a deficit, that doesn't mean we're in the negative. A school district has to balance a budget. So that negative then comes out of the fund balance. So this current, into next year, we're going to be under $8 million in fund balance. And if we run, even at best case scenario, $2.5 million negative, what that means is a district can make it 3 years, if it's worst case scenario, 2 years, until we're really in financial trouble.
So how do you solve it? What's the procedures to solve it right now?
Well,
and does that mean tax increases?
So I think I think first of all, every line item has been examined since January to try to come up with solutions that don't impact kids. When you're talking a big number like $2.5 million or $3.5 million, a school district's budget, 75% is salary and benefits. So very tough decisions have to happen. And last evening at the work session, there were 11 professional positions that are being considered for elimination, and 4 support staff positions that are being considered. But even with those, that's less than $1 million. We're still about $1.5 million short into next year. So we have to have a long-term plan, which we do. I know you're well aware that we have hired EI associates to look at a restructuring option for the district. We currently run 4 elementary schools. There's an option on the table to really go down to 3 elementary schools and repurpose Beck and still use Beck for Shikellamy kids. I'll break that down for you if you want me to.
That would be eliminating this building, the administration building.
Yeah, that would be eliminating this building as well.
Real fast, on the 15 positions, so it would be 11 teachers and 4 other people. Obviously, it's the horrible situation for everybody, but I think the big question there is, will class sizes also get bigger? Because that's one of the concerns we have for kids that are going to be bumped into classes now that may have 40, 50 kids? Is that?
So a majority of the positions that we're sitting here talking about are elementary positions, but what I need people to understand is across the district, there are grades in each of our buildings that may only have 42 kids, 45 kids, and those classes are split into three sections, 3 teachers, meaning we have classes that are 14 kids, 15 kids, 18 kids. There's other classes across this district that there's 25, 26, 27 kids. So class sizes will be no bigger with these eliminations than they were currently this year, with the understanding that our very, very small classes will be on average the same as the rest of the district.
Are those positions eliminated forever, or are they just a furloughed position that may come back eventually?
So there's only certain things you can furlough for. There's restrictions behind that, so you have to follow what's allowable. So that's why people sometimes say, well, why did you cut this versus this? Well, there's only certain things you can eliminate. We're hopeful that, state and federal funding will be increased in the next handful of years, and we can get back to where we are currently. But the fact of the matter is Shikellamy cannot survive without a long-term plan for financial stability, and I think that's what we're developing. I think the board, this district, has been very strategic as far as their thinking over the past couple years. Yes, they ran deficits, but they did that because they didn't want to make major changes. I think we're now at a point where we have to do some things to make sure that Shikellamy can survive and thrive, but by all means, we have to live within our means. So I guess that's how I'm going to answer that question.
Right. Did you meet with teachers and the district itself, employees themselves on this already?
Yes. So my moral code is that I'm not going to let someone find out by a board document or getting a letter in the mail. I personally sat down with every single person that would be affected by this.
And so that's already done. Everything that has been.
Yes.
Anybody that has gone.
That was done this week.
That was done this week. Okay. And as far as, so you're saving there, what's the next steps to saving the rest to get out of it? And will there be a tax increase, or is that something we don't know yet again?
So the long-term plan, I want to be very clear that the restructuring gets us closer to that number, but that does not take place until 21-22. So that's kind of step 2, and there will be no changes as far as the building that kids go to for next school year. There's no plans to close a building next school year. We have a long-term plan to look at the restructuring option that we already talked about. As far as a tax increase, I think that's a very difficult spot to be in, especially with this COVID situation. We've already talked about how many of our community members are unemployed, and then we're going to talk about potential tax increases. That's a board decision. I think that they have to think through that, but I think that that's a very tough sell with where the economy is. It can't all be on the backs of local taxpayers. The federal government, the state government have to step up and fund schools appropriately.
And with all of that going on, you also have to deal with the end of the school year, which is prom, which is graduation, and just everything that comes with that. So what are the plans going on for that now? So
we've taken a wait-and-see approach. We're really looking at, hopefully we can do something for the class of 2020. We really feel for these kids. Graduation, prom, if we can have them and we're allowed to have them and safely have them following the guidelines of the CDC, we're going to do it. And if we have to move it back till later in June or July, we're going to do that. But we're also exploring options as far as a virtual prom that's going on locally. We're going to participate in that, but we're really looking to participate in that as a way for kids to get together. And if we can have a prom thereafter, great. If we're not allowed, at least we were able to do that. And same with graduation. We're talking about, do we do something virtually, or can we put it off and do it later in the summer? The problem with doing it later in the summer is there's certain kids that are going to go off to the military, off to college early, that will miss out. And we really want to just try to do what's best for kids.
As far as the beginning of next year, what are you hearing on that, or is that just right now too far down the road to even think?
I think you're aware that Pedro Rivera, our Secretary of Ed, came out last week and said preparing for worst case scenario. What if we aren't back in August? Here's what we're going to do with Shikellamy. Hopefully we'll be back for the start of August the next school year. We're going to continue to practice this online platform even if we are back, in case there's a second surge and we're out again.
And will it count at that point? Are you going to try to make that where it counts at that point?
As far as grading,
Yes.
is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be some kind of shift with that if it extends into next year. Now, hopefully, people are just preparing for worst case scenario. I hope we're back and the world can return to some type of normalcy. But realistically, it's too early to tell, and that's the decisions that our state government has to make.
Perfect. Well, we thank you for taking the time during all this and coming in and speaking to us, and we wish the district best of luck, and let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having me in, and I know Shikellamy will get through this tough time.
Thanks for watching One on One. Be sure to tune in again for another edition.